I am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. And today's episode is another solo episode by me to talk about the struggles that I'm seeing in so many people and organizations and when I'm out networking and talking to professionals and leaders. So we've talked about overwhelm. The next thing that I'm hearing over and over again is not having enough time, and that it can just seem busy all of the time. So if you've been struggling with this, you are not alone. That we all go through our days and maybe not realize that other people are struggling with the same things internally because we show up with a smile, we greet people. If someone asks us for help, we give them the time. However, when we give away our time, then it starts affecting our internal energy, and we may show up unintentionally in a way that we don't want to. So, what's important for us is to make sure that we are being intentional with our time. Now, in my book, Business Balance and Bliss, there are lots of tips. I have a whole chapter called Being Present, and really talking about how we unlock these tools that are right inside us that allow us to control our day rather than it come at us. And so what I want you to do is think about what is the thing that you are struggling with the most. So some of the things that I hear is I have too many meetings or too many interruptions, or I prioritize what I need to get done during the day, and somehow at the end of the day, I haven't gotten it done and I'm not even sure how. Or I'm trying to leave work or finish work by 5 or 5:30, but what's happening is I'm not really finishing till 7. Then I get home and I'm hungry, and I don't even get to enjoy the outside in these summer months. So it's important for us to think about what is it that we can control. And part of this is setting boundaries, boundaries with ourselves and boundaries with people around us. Now, this can be hard if we have never done this before. And if we are a yes person, if we are a people pleaser, it's very hard. Or if we have too much on our plate and we think we can multitask, which actually is not a thing, then what happens is that we're not getting as much done as we think we are getting done. So let's start with multitasking. When we are multitasking, our brain cannot focus on multiple things at one time. We think it can, but to prove to you that it can't, if you are on a conference call and you don't have your video on and you're still checking your email or doing some work while that call is going on, and you think you were listening and hearing what you need, except then someone calls out and says, Amy, what do you think about that? And then I realized I got distracted. I thought I was multitasking, but what was actually happening was I was no longer paying attention. And so when that happens, I have to recover and ask, can you repeat that? So obviously I wasn't paying attention. And secondly, I'm actually stealing time from the people on that call as well. So it is really important that we figure out how to get present, whether we are doing it before a meeting or before we're about to do our own work as well, so we can focus on one task at a time. Now, there are multiple things you can do, and I'm going to give you some suggestions here, but what I want you to think about is what is one of these things that seem doable that you could put in place as a goal, maybe in the next 30 days, and try to do it each day so that you can start building this up for yourself and feeling like you can make more of an impact on the things that you are doing in the day and making sure you're accomplishing it. So, first off, is we don't want to multitask. So, in order for me to not multitask, I probably need to set up a list in the beginning of my day and talk about what are my one or two major priorities that I need to get done that day so I can set that time in my head that that needs to get done. Now, I can do that in multiple ways. I can just go ahead and start working on those things, or I can actually block time on my calendar to do my own individual work. Now, what I hear a lot when people do this is they block the time. However, when they block that time, someone comes in and interrupts, or they get a phone call or a text or an instant message, and they get distracted and do that. So, what I'm going to ask you to do if you choose to do this as one of your actionable items is that you do not allow distractions during that time. So, if you are client or customer focused, you want to think about yourself as your own client or customer, that you are doing this so that you can show up better for the people around you. And you know that you got certain things done today that you needed to get done so that you don't show up frustrated. You don't show up with, uh, your attention just feeling off, that you want to make sure that you are completely focused. So, in order to do that, I've got to turn on my do not disturb on my phone, on my computer, making sure that I'm not seeing notifications pop up that might distract me during a meeting or doing the work that I want to do during the day. So that is one way we can do that. Now, I would also suggest, because I hear this all the time, is I started to block my calendar. However, I still didn't get these things done. So when you're thinking about how much time to block your calendar for, I want you to think about, if you think it'll take 30 minutes, block an hour. If you think it'll take an hour, block 2 hours. So double it. Make sure that you have enough time. And if you end up having extra time, I'm sure you'll figure out something to do with that time. So very important to not underestimate the time to do a task, but actually overestimate it to make sure that you can accomplish it and you don't start compressing your day where you didn't get to get that done. So that is one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is to make sure that you've cleared the space in your head so that you can do this meeting, this work, and be present. And this is a really important thing because we kind of let the day just steamroll us all day long. We go from meeting to meeting to meeting. So if we are frustrated or stressed from one meeting or one experience, and we don't take a time to get present or silent before we go into that meeting, then what happens is that energy gets carried into the next meeting. So it's very important that you take a few minutes and get present before you go into a meeting or before you do your own work. And so that might mean that because you weren't multitasking during your last experience, so last meeting, last time you were doing work for yourself, that maybe you are checking email during that time so that you can clear it out and feel like you're good before you go into a meeting or do some work. So you're clearing space so that you can be present. The other thing that you might do as well is that you might close your eyes for like 2 minutes and just get silent. And what I would suggest is you take your phone and you make sure that you set an alarm on your phone for 2 minutes so that you're not peeking while you're doing this, that you take that 2 minutes and you get silent. You close your eyes, you just tap into your breath, and you allow yourself to process and to regenerate that energy that you need in order to focus. This is how we clear space in our mind so that we can be present in our next experience and be fully actively aware of what we are doing and not feel like at the end of the day, we don't know what we did. So whether we're meeting with someone else or doing our own work, we're going to take 2 minutes. Now that 2 minutes might be to get silent. That 2 minutes might be to listen to some music that's going to change your energy. That 2 minutes might be to take a walk if you're remote around your house, outside. If you're in an office, walk around the office, maybe get out of the office for a moment and just get some fresh air so that you can reset. This does wonders to make sure that you are monotasking and completely focused on what you need to do. Now, the way our brain works during the day is that we can only focus on a task for so long. So if you have blocked an hour or more than an hour to do a task, all the research that I have found says that typically our brains can only do one task and stay focused for on average about 50 minutes. So what we need is 50 minutes completely focused, not being distracted. And then we can take a 15-minute break to reset before we go into a meeting, before we continue on that same task or pick up another piece of work. So what you want to do is block your calendar, set the do not disturb, and work straight for 50 minutes. And then make sure you have blocked off a 10, 15-minute break to reset. That might be, again, to check your email, to check any notifications that might have come through or texts. That might be to get silent, to listen to music, to take a walk. Whatever that is, really important to use your calendar to block this time. Now, the other important thing about using our calendar to block this time is we are sending a message to the people around us that this time is blocked. That if they want to set a meeting with us, they need to set a meeting and not just walk in or interrupt. And just because someone sends you a message doesn't mean that you have to respond right away. And I know we feel that way, but I want you to reverse it and think about when you send a message to someone else, do you expect them to respond right away? Probably not. Unless it's like an absolute emergency. If so, you've probably texted them or called them in a way because you need an immediate answer. But if you do not need an immediate answer, then you have that access to be able to say, I'm going to check my messages at certain times in my day so that people are not expecting you to respond right away. So a lot of times what happens is we set up these habits, and then that becomes an expectation of somebody else. And it is really important to think about when that's uncomfortable for you to not respond right away. And really maybe get silent on it, process it, meditate on it, whatever it is. It came from somewhere. Someone probably told you some place in your career, or maybe it was in your family background or a friend, that it was really important to respond right away when someone contacts you, or if it's a client that contacts you. But is that the expectation? Because if a client is emailing you, are they expecting a response right away? And do they always respond to you right away when you need them to? Probably not. It's just not realistic. People are not sitting at their computer waiting for you to send things to them so they can act on it. I was in a workshop, facilitating a workshop on this, and someone said, with this, that they struggle because they basically open up their computer in the morning and then it's like, come at me. What is in there? What communication? And that's going to run their day. That is not how you want your day to run. You want to control what you can control. Not every meeting can we control on our calendar, but we do have the opportunity to control the spaces that we can on our calendar to ensure we're being intentional about it and feel like at the end of the day, we did clear the priorities that were important to us to clear. So to do that, we've got to block our calendar. We've got to think about how we're going to get present prior to that meeting or prior to the work that we are set to do. We've also got to think about, when do we need breaks so that we can reset and be present and have the right amount of energy to focus on the work or on the meeting or in that experience. So all of these things are important to think about when we're setting a goal around time. That a lot of times we're actually blaming everyone else for the fact that we don't have enough time, but it's actually that we haven't given ourselves enough space to plan, to think about it. I know when things get out of control for me, I can see it because I've got notes all over my desk. I feel like my calendar's booked, way overbooked. And so what that does is send a message to me if I choose to listen to it, right? Like I'm getting uncomfortable, I'm getting stressed out in my body when that's happening. Now, I can get frustrated with the world that that's happening, or I can pause and say, what do I need to do to shift this? And so a lot of times it'll be taking all those notes on my desk and consolidating them and really determining what are my priorities for today or the next day or the next day. I also need to look at my calendar. If I am overbooked, what meetings can I move? What meetings can I shift so that I can give myself space to get work done? If I don't give myself the space to get work done, I show up in a way that I don't want to show up because I'm not feeling confident. I'm not feeling like I actually have done the things necessary to show up in the best way possible. So these are things that we can take actions on, and we can choose to do maybe just one of these things. It might just be getting present before you go into a meeting. It might just be making sure you've built in breaks on your day. It might just be of your prioritization and blocking time to make sure you get those priorities done. Whatever that is, make sure you're thinking about, what is your motivating factor to do this? So why are you excited to do this? Because it's going to take work, right? It's shifting a habit. It's not natural to you. So in order for us to stay on track, it's important to think about, what is it that we want this to achieve for us? Why do we want to get this back? I want to feel better. I want to feel less stressed. I want to make sure I can go walk each night outside, or be with my spouse or my partner or my family and be present and not feel like I'm stressed out and not paying attention. Whatever those things are for you, I want to make sure that you document that with your goal so that you understand the outcome that you are trying to achieve. It's not just about doing the action, it's about the feeling that you're going to have once you do it. That's the balance piece of business balance and bliss. The business side is all these things that we've got to do in order to get the task completed. But the balance side is, what is the energy, the piece inside of us that we can elevate to offset that stressor so we can create bliss, so we can maintain happiness and joy. And when we start noticing that we're off, that's when we set our next goal and maybe add on to this goal. So We want to take one action to do this. And our first action is going to be maybe to look at our calendar and where we can find blocks of time or reorganize our calendar so that we have space to get our own work done. Or if it was to take breaks or to get present before a meeting, looking at your calendar where you can do that. The other thing is you want to celebrate the wins as you're trying to create a new habit. And that can be hard because celebrating the wins, maybe while you're doing it, you might do it the first day and it doesn't work out perfect. Don't give up. So what you want to do is each day say what worked, what didn't work, and what you will do different tomorrow. By doing that self-assessment, you start noticing the little things that are working, because you could just look at it from a high level and think it's not working. But once you notice the little nuances in your life, those are the things that make big shifts in your life, the small changes that you make. So sometimes, you can hear these things, you've done them before, they can be obvious to you, but you just forgot and you got off track. That is okay. So what this is really right now is a reminder that you can control certain things in your life in order to make sure that you are feeling better, that you are showing up with the energy that you want to show up with each day. And we can do that when we're intentional, when we notice that these things are building up inside of us. What actions can we take instead of worrying what other people are doing or getting frustrated with someone else? What can we do to make that shift? And so this one about not having enough time, I want you to walk away from this, set your goal. What is it that is creating that for you? What is it that you can control and what you can't control? And what one or two actions can you take right now, write it down, of how you can start shifting this in your life? And what is the motivating factor for you to do that? What is going to make you excited to do that each day? I hope that this has been helpful and you're able to take at least one or two of these ideas and start implementing them into your life. This is what we're all about at the B3 Method Institute, and we help people with every day. And I want to make sure that in our workplace, wherever you are, that everyone is able to show up with the energy that we want and that make us happy during the day. Not all days are going to be perfect, but if we can contribute to creating a little bit more joy in the workplace, then we start feeling better as well internally of how we're showing up for the people around us. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.